You think you're attracting, waiting, hoping the right thing will notice you, land in your lap, come when the energy is finally right, but that belief alone keeps you in limbo, suspended between desire and doubt, feeling like maybe something is wrong with you, or the timing, or the universe. But it's not attraction that births reality, it's choice. And not the surface-level kind of choice that's spoken with the lips and contradicted by the body. I'm talking about the silent, steady, embodied kind. The one made through your nervous system, your gaze, your state of being. The kind of choice that doesn't beg or wait or over-explain. It signals, it decides, and that signal bends timelines. Here's the truth. The quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your coherence. It reads the frequency of your gaze, what you lock onto, what you subtly claim with your attention, not what you say you want, not what you script in your journal, but what you stare at with the expectation of being. Most people don't realize that their attention is their author, that the moment you look at your life through the lens of absence, you reinforce it. Every time you check your phone with the vibration of lack, wonder why it hasn't arrived. Search the signs for proof you're close. You are not attracting. You are choosing the timeline of almost, the identity of seeker, the frequency of waiting. Because every gaze is a declaration, a selection, a vote for the version of you that you're reinforcing. And if your gaze is laced with need, with monitoring, with the tightness of trying, the field reads that tension as instability. It does not magnetize around the tight grip. It harmonizes with coherence. Think about this. Have you ever tried to manifest something, said all the right affirmations, visualized, prayed, aligned your crystals, and yet nothing moved? You felt like you were doing everything right, but the undercurrent was still filled with effort, subtle fear, subconscious attachment to not having it yet. That's not choosing, that's micromanaging. See, choosing is not a mental declaration. It is a frequency decision. It is the embodiment of inevitability, not the anxious kind, the relaxed, heart-open, spine-softened kind. The kind of choosing that happens when a flower opens to the sun without questioning its worth. When a lioness walks into the room and doesn't have to roar to be felt. That's the level of identity coherence we're speaking of, because in quantum mechanics, it is not the object that exists independently of the observer. It is the observation, the observer effect, that calls the particle into form, which means your gaze doesn't just witness reality, it shapes it, sculpts it, summons it, but only when it is rooted in the self that already holds the vibration, that already lives inside the timeline, not hypothetically but viscerally embodied. Your gaze must be made of presence, not pressure, devotion, not desperation. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are willing to choose, without backup plans, without proof, without performance. The field reads the yes beneath the words, the silent, unwavering yes of the body that knows what it is, even when the 3D hasn't caught up yet. The yes that says, I don't need to chase, I don't need to force, I don't need to wait. I am the chooser now, and I gaze with the power of one who remembers. Not more asking, more anchoring, not more fixing, more frequency, not more steps, more stillness. Let the quantum mirror catch up. Let your choice be enough, let your gaze be clean, because once you understand that you are not attracting, you are selecting. Every moment becomes a doorway, every emotion becomes a clue, every pattern becomes a pivot point, and every breath becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of the real. You can feel it, can't you? The difference between when you're trying to make something happen and when you've already decided. That quiet shift in your body, when the grip loosens, when the mind goes still, when the energy settles into something deeper than thought, that's the moment the field listens. Because choice is not noisy. It doesn't announce itself with urgency. It doesn't spiral in search of signs. It doesn't need validation. It knows. And that knowing is a frequency, a signal, a stabilizing pulse that tells the quantum, I'm already there. But most of us are trained to do the opposite, to earn, to strive, to perform our worth in hopes that something or someone will reflect it back. We confuse desire with need, and in that confusion we broadcast incoherence. We say one thing, but our body says another. We want love, but our gaze is still seeking safety. We want abundance, but we stare at our lack like it's permanent. We want freedom, but our nervous system is addicted to control. This contradiction creates static, and static scrambles the signal. It doesn't make you unworthy, it just makes you unclear, and the field can only reflect what is coherent, so we try harder, we grasp, we reach. But the more tightly we hold, the more fragmented our field becomes. Because the quantum doesn't respond to how hard you try. It responds to how open you are. And openness is not a concept. It's a physiological state, a nervous system in regulation, a heart not guarded by fear, a breath that flows instead of contracts. That's what coherence feels like. Not performance, presence, not willpower, willingness. Think of someone who walks into a room and changes the atmosphere without saying a word, not because they're loud, but because they're whole. Their gaze isn't scanning for approval, it's resting in truth. That's vibrational gravity. That's the power of someone who has chosen. You can feel it, you remember it, because at your core, you are that too. But you forgot. You were taught to wait for permission, for the stars to align, for someone else to tell you it's safe now. And so you kept your gaze scattered, your presence diluted, your power conditional. But that version of you isn't wrong. They're just tired. Tired of carrying the weight of manifestation like it's another job, another task, another way to fix yourself. You don't need fixing. You need to return to simplicity, to stillness, to that inner click that says, I'm no longer convincing life to choose me. I'm choosing life fully, gently, without apology, without theatrics. Just a soft, steady claim of self, of frequency, of embodiment. Because embodiment is the bridge, the place where intention becomes resonance, where identity becomes outcome, where you stop wishing and start being. It's in the breath you take when you stop chasing, in the posture you hold when you're no longer proving, in the quiet steadiness of choosing what already feels like home, even if it hasn't shown up in form yet. And that's where timelines bend, not when you ask harder, but when you anchor deeper, when your gaze no longer asks, is it coming? But instead whispers, it's already mine. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Not because you're forcing, but because you finally remembered how to feel safe enough to receive. And here's the paradox that most minds resist. The moment you truly choose, the moment your being stabilizes into the vibration of already, you no longer need it to arrive. And that's precisely why it does. Because needing is a frequency, wanting is a frequency, but so is knowing, so is having, so is being. And the quantum doesn't reward your yearning, it reflects your state. This is why you can spend years chasing a vision, looping in self-help, refining your rituals, but until your nervous system feels safe enough to hold what you're asking for, it remains just out of reach. Not because you're blocked, but because your field is still signaling, not yet. It's not the desire that shapes your life, it's the decision beneath it, the emotional tone you live inside, the self-perception you gaze from. Every time you picture the life you want and feel a subtle ache of absence, you're not aligning, you're reinforcing distance. Every time you check the external for proof, every time you double-check the signs, you're broadcasting, it's still not here. And the field listens, not to your intention, but to your embodiment. So ask yourself this, what version of me am I gazing from? Not the version you think you are, the one your body believes, the one your breath affirms, the one your posture reflects in silence. That version, the one beneath performance, is the one the quantum listens to. If your system is still bracing for disappointment, then no matter how often you visualize success, the field gets mixed signals. If your body still associates receiving with danger, with being seen, being judged, being overwhelmed, then it will unconsciously repel the very things you claim to desire. And it's not sabotage, it's safety. Your system is not misaligned. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do, survive. Which means the work isn't to push harder, it's to create safety in the signal, to regulate the body so the vision doesn't feel like a threat, to soften your presence until your desire doesn't require proof, to let go of the performance of readiness and actually become ready, frequency first. And readiness feels like this. No more clutching, no more countdown, no more hunting for clues. Just a quiet yes in the marrow, a knowing in the cells, a trust that doesn't need reassurance, a gaze that no longer flinches at the unknown, but welcomes it like a door swinging open inside the heart. This is why control blocks manifestation, because it's a frequency of fear, because it says, I don't trust it'll come unless I manage every variable. But life doesn't bloom through force, it blooms through trust, through coherence, through the magnetic calm of someone who is no longer seeking evidence because they've become it. And when you become the frequency, reality reorganizes around you, not in linear time, in quantum response, not according to logic, but to resonance. You collapse the distance between who you've been and who you truly are, not by effort but by remembering. So pause, breathe, drop beneath the mental noise. Let your body answer this. What have I been waiting for that I'm ready to become? What timeline have I been hoping for that I now choose, not in concept but in coherence? Feel the shift. Let it ripple through your spine. Let it soften your gaze. Let it clean the static from your signal. This is how it begins, not with striving but with surrender, not with more action but with deeper alignment. This is the gaze that bends reality. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you stop chasing the outcome and start inhabiting the vibration. And it changes everything. You wake up and the world feels different, though nothing has changed. You move slower, gentler, not because you've given up, but because you've finally arrived. You're no longer peeking ahead, no longer bargaining with the universe, no longer needing the next sign to feel secure. You've chosen, and that choice lives in your breath now, in your tone, in the space between your thoughts. It lives in the way you pour your coffee, the way you walk down the street, the way you speak to yourself in silence. You've become the frequency, and that is the moment the field begins to respond. But it's not always loud. It's not always lightning bolts and synchronicities. Sometimes it's subtle, a soft shift, a different kind of mirror, an interaction that no longer hooks you, a choice that feels clearer than before. A no that once terrified you now flows from your mouth without hesitation. These are the signs of embodiment. Not flashing lights, but coherence in motion. And coherence isn't perfection, it's congruence, alignment between what you desire and how you dwell inside yourself, between what you declare and what you embody. You can't fake this signal. You can't posture your way into alignment. The quantum doesn't respond to masks. It responds to essence. It reads the emotional imprint of your choices, not the words that dress them. This is why identity work is everything. Because you don't manifest from your thoughts. You manifest from your self-concept, from the frequency of who you believe you are. If you believe deep down that you're always waiting, that life makes you prove yourself first, that you're still being tested or punished or overlooked, then your gaze will mirror that belief. Even if you say all the right things, the body will vibrate lack, and the field will reflect it. But when you become the one who is no longer negotiating their worth, something unlocks. Your energy stops leaking into proving. Your presence becomes dense with clarity. You stop outsourcing your sense of becoming to outer conditions, and from that state, not performance but peace, your signal sharpens. Your gaze chooses without flinching. Your nervous system no longer trembles at the unknown, because you've remembered you are the source. And this remembrance isn't grand, it's gentle, it's intimate. It's the way your heart beats when you're no longer trying to impress life, just live it. It's the way your breath deepens when you know the moment is enough. It's the way your gaze softens when you stop asking the mirror to change and instead become the image you've been waiting to see. That's quantum choosing, not linear, not effortful, but electric in its clarity. It reorganizes timelines without drama. It pulls the improbable toward you like gravity, because you're not trying to be magnetic, you are magnetic. You're not asking reality to notice you, you're sculpting it with your gaze, quietly, unshakably, unmistakably. And the most powerful thing, when you shift into this space, you don't need reality to change right away, because you've already shifted inside the only thing that ever mattered, your frequency. The rest is just echo, reverb, matching signals catching up to the choice you made long before the evidence appeared. This is not about patience, it's about presence, not about waiting, about welcoming. This is the space where miracles become ordinary, where effort gives way to elegance, where choosing becomes art, and the observer becomes the creator. And maybe this is what you've been searching for all along, not the thing, but the state, not the outcome, but the intimacy with your own power. Because when you stop trying to attract and start choosing with your frequency, you stop outsourcing your peace. You stop holding your breath for life to deliver you a sign that you are worthy. You stop needing reality to validate your becoming. You simply become. And in that becoming, something extraordinary happens. Reality begins to mirror you, but not in the way you expected. Not like a vending machine where desire in equals result out. No, it's more poetic than that. It comes in through the cracks, in moments you couldn't have planned, in ways that feel like recognition, not reward, as if life has been waiting for you to finally remember who you are, so it could finally reflect that back. But remember this, The old you will want to interrupt this process, the one who needed control, who measured progress in external metrics, who believed safety came from prediction, not presence. That part of you might feel scared as you soften, as you release the grip, as you stop needing to monitor everything, and that's okay. Let them feel scared, let them tremble, but don't mistake that fear for truth. It's just residue, echo. It doesn't belong to the chooser. It belongs to the one you're leaving behind, because the quantum doesn't respond to the past. It responds to now. It responds to the version of you that exists in this exact breath. So if you're still waiting for proof, ask, which part of me is asking for that? Is it the part that doesn't feel safe unless it sees the outcome first? Is it the version that still believes they have to earn it, manifest it, get it right? Or is it the one who knows that the choice has already been made, and now I simply become the echo of that choice? You see, in the field of infinite possibilities, time is not linear. The moment you align your frequency with a future self, that version begins to inform your now, not the other way around. It's not, once it arrives, I'll feel safe. It's, once I feel safe, it arrives. This is why the gaze is everything, because your gaze isn't just looking, it's selecting. It's calling particles into coherence, and when your gaze stops looking for evidence and starts emitting certainty, the field reshapes to match you. But certainty doesn't mean stubbornness. It means softness, a surrendered steadiness, a gaze that no longer flinches even in silence, a presence that says, I no longer need proof because I've become it. I no longer seek signs because I am the signal. I no longer fear the delay because I am no longer waiting. I am walking the timeline now, not someday, now. And the beauty of this, it frees you from the emotional roller coaster, from the overanalyzing, from the chronic checking, from the grip. You stop manifesting from pressure and start radiating from presence. You stop asking, is it working, and start feeling, of course it is. Not because of what's happening outside, but because of what's landed inside. That's the gaze that bends the quantum. Not intensity, intimacy, not more doing, more becoming. Not from fear, from frequency. And it all begins with the decision, not spoken but lived. A silent, sacred yes that echoes through every cell. That says, I choose. I choose this self, this reality, this timeline, not later, not when it's proven, now. Because I'm done waiting, I'm ready to be. You can feel the difference in your bones when the decision has rooted itself so deeply into your being that you stop scanning the horizon for confirmation. You stop asking, when will it show up? Because the question itself no longer makes sense. You've already arrived, not physically perhaps, but vibrationally, emotionally, somatically. You've arrived in the timeline where it's already true, already real, already yours. This is not about faking it, not about pretending, not about bypassing your emotions. It's about becoming so attuned to the frequency of what you choose that doubt no longer pulls you out of alignment, because you've trained your gaze to rest in certainty, not circumstance. You've trained your nervous system to trust the unseen more than the temporary. And that trust is magnetic. It doesn't beg. It doesn't push. It doesn't collapse under delay. It steadies, it deepens, it opens wider. And in that opening, the signal sharpens. It becomes so clear, so undiluted, that reality has no choice but to align. This is how the quantum works. Not through force, but through fidelity to frequency. Through loyalty to the vibration of already, even when the evidence is silent. Because silence is not absence, it's calibration. It's the field listening, reorganizing, harmonizing with your signal. And if you keep jumping out of the timeline, back into doubt, back into worry, back into monitoring, you scramble the coherence, you delay the delivery, you distort the mirror. So instead of asking, why isn't it here yet, ask, what am I still waiting for permission to feel now? What am I postponing until the external validates me? Can I give myself that frequency now, before the form arrives? Can I live the timeline in my body before it shows up in my calendar? Because that's what embodiment is. It's not a mental rehearsal, it's a physiological claim, a way of walking, breathing, being that says, I am no longer chasing, I am no longer asking, I am already the one who has. And the field reflects this not as reward, but as resonance. This is why you must stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for the next sign. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. You're already ready. You were always the one choosing. The delay was never punishment, it was preparation. The field wasn't withholding. It was waiting for coherence, waiting for your gaze to stop flickering, waiting for your signal to steady into knowing. And when it does, it's not dramatic, it's not cinematic, it's quiet but undeniable. Things shift, doors open, people respond differently, synchronicities return, not because you forced them, but because you remembered how to let them come. You stopped controlling the path and started inhabiting the frequency, and that changes everything. So today, choose again, not with your mouth, with your gaze, with your posture, with your breath, with the way you meet the mundane, with the way you hold yourself when no one's watching. That's where the real work lives, in the micro moments. The spaces between effort, the pauses where you remember, I am the chooser, I am the signal, I am not attracting, I am aligning. And that alignment is already in motion. And isn't it wild? The peace that comes when you stop trying to get it right and instead simply let yourself be the frequency. When you stop tracking the how and start inhabiting the who. When you stop scanning for signs and start radiating from the inside out. There's a kind of quiet rebellion in that, a radical surrender, a choice to no longer be led by fear but by feeling, not the emotion of lack, but the sensation of truth, the cellular memory that says, I know who I am and I'm done pretending otherwise. This is where the real shift happens, not in your thinking, but in your stance. In the invisible way your energy reorients around certainty, in the way you breathe deeper without realizing it, in the way your spine stacks taller, your shoulders drop, your face softens. You stop proving, you stop performing, you stop pursuing, you start transmitting, because coherence is transmission. And transmission is how timelines recognize you. You're not waiting anymore, you're weaving. You're not longing anymore, you're landing. And this isn't about bypassing reality, it's about bending it. Because the version of you that lives in wishful thinking is no longer the one driving. The version of you that hoped, doubted, negotiated has been replaced by the one who remembers. I am not separate from the thing, I am the signal of it. And signals don't beg, they don't panic, they don't explain, they broadcast. So ask yourself now, what am I broadcasting when I enter a room, when I open my phone, when I meet uncertainty? Am I leaking energy through control or radiating energy through coherence? Am I tethered to timelines that don't serve me or attuned to the one I've already chosen? This isn't about perfection, it's about precision, a return to the core frequency, the one beneath the noise, the one that doesn't need defending, the one that's always been there, humming beneath your skin, waiting to be trusted. And when you trust it, everything begins to accelerate, not chaotically, not overwhelmingly, but gracefully. The right conversations, the right ideas, the right shifts. Not because you forced the puzzle together, but because you finally stopped pretending you were the missing piece. You became the center, you held the shape, and the pieces came. This is the magic of quantum choosing. It's not about making things happen, it's about becoming so unwavering in your signal that the world reshapes around it. So rooted in your embodiment that evidence becomes inevitable, so deeply synced with the timeline of truth that all falseness falls away. And it's not some mystical leap, it's the most grounded thing you'll ever do. It's the return to your body, your breath, your now, over and over, until you stop reacting to reality and start reauthoring it. Until your gaze stops seeking safety and starts creating it. Until your frequency becomes the fact and reality has no choice but to reflect it. So soften. Again, relax into the yes that already lives inside you. Let your gaze choose what your soul already knows. Let your body remember the timeline you came here to walk. Let presence be the portal. Let identity be the instrument. Let coherence be the code. You're not attracting, you're choosing, with every breath, every step, every gaze. And now, there's nothing left to wait for. Because once you understand that your gaze is the architect, not the audience, that your presence sculpts timelines, not your plans, you realize there's no future event that completes you. There's only this moment, this breath, this decision to let your frequency finish the sentence before form ever does. That's the power you've been carrying all along. Not to chase the dream, but to become the version of you who doesn't need the dream to feel complete, who doesn't need evidence to trust, who doesn't need permission to be magnetic. That's when the game changes. Not from force, but from stillness. Not from strategy, but from intimacy, with your signal, with your nervous system, with the self that no longer tries to become, but dares to be. That version of you is already vibrating, already glowing. already broadcasting such clarity that the old stories fall away like ash, and the quantum field listens. It has no resistance, no opinion, no delay, only reflection, only resonance, only feedback. So what are you feeding it? Are you feeding it with frantic desire or embodied devotion? Are you waiting to be chosen, or are you choosing with every breath? Are you rehearsing who you might become, or are you letting yourself live as that now? Feel it in your spine, the difference between waiting and claiming, between holding your breath and letting it go, between monitoring for the moment and realizing this is the moment, right now, not when the message comes, not when the bank account grows, not when the partner appears or the path clears or the signs get louder. Now, with or without the evidence, you choose. And when you choose, truly, physiologically, cellularly, you shift timelines. Not someday, now. Because in the quantum, time bends to coherence. Reality bows to embodiment. The world rearranges around who you are, not what you want. You don't need to try harder. You need to remember deeper. To return to the self that already holds the vibration. To anchor into the version of you that has nothing left to prove, only presence left to deepen. So walk like it's done. Breathe like it's here. Gaze like you remember. Speak from the stillness beneath the story. And let everything else align to your clarity. You're not attracting. You're not asking. You're not waiting. You're choosing. With the power of your gaze, the stillness of your body, the frequency of your truth. And the universe is already listening.